Hi there, this is Dr. Embody with Project 9. So this is our second project with dictionaries. And what we're going to do in this project basically is construct a complicated, ugly dictionary and then ask you to drill down into it and extract values out of it. That's the basic idea. So let's take a look at, and so what I'm going to talk about today is what does that dictionary look like, and give you some ideas of how you might go about extracting the data. And what I find useful is in the function, after this dictionary gets built, is we're actually asking you to grab a couple of values out of the dictionary. And what I do is I just try to print those values. So in the first function that we'll look at, it's the entity and the records stolen, like how many records were stolen out of AOL. And so I try to print those values first. And that lets me know whether I'm getting the actual values that I need. And once I can print them, then I know I can go grab them and put them into like a tuple and make a list of them. And then I'm into this comfort level that we've been working on for a number of projects. And so I suggest that you go about doing it that way. And so with that, let me show you how I went about doing this. So the first thing to look at is this colorful little slide here. And this shows one of the entries that we have in there. With that, so this, we're going to have a big dictionary, and you can see the parentheses there. And I'm showing you just one entry in that. And we have a key, and the key has for a value in the dictionary, it has a list. What's it a list of? Well, it's a list of tuples. And what we did is we colored them here. All right, so there's a yellow tuple, a green tuple, and a blue tuple. Each one inside is another dictionary using the same key value. And it turns out that we're going to be to start out with, we're going to be very interested in these particular numbers in the first part. And then in the second part, so the first function we're going to look at is interested in those values. The second function that we look at is going to be interested also in the year. All right, and so our job is, is to look into this data structure and extract things out. So the first function is going to grab the key and the value there, or this particular value, the records. And then the second function we're going to look at is going to grab this pair of numbers. And so what I do is I take this and print those values. So the first time around, I want to print that, and I want to print that. And then once I can do that, then I can think about how I'm going to gather this information. So oops, let me go back. So I'm going to leave, building the dictionary. You can build a dictionary. I want to look at this function here, the records lost by entities. And then we're going to make a list of tuples. And as I mentioned, it's going to have the name and of the entity and the records that are in there. And so with that, let's take a look. So I'm going to take a look at this test. And when you look at the test, you can actually copy out of that the dictionary that's in the test. And I'm there we go, big ugly thing, and there's this If I just look at the dictionary, there it is. Let's take a look at this. So, for example, how many? Well, actually, no. Let me even go back further. How many entries are there in this big dictionary? There are 46. What do they look like? So there's a bunch of these, and some of these are names you might recognize: Hewlett-Packard, J.P. Morgan, and so on. Just because it's at the end, let's take a look at one of those entries. So these are strings. And what does that entry look like? Well, there it is. It's so the entry, it's a list. It's a list of tuples. Turns out there's just one tuple in this one. And we are interested in that number. How do I get that number? Well, let's start digging. Let's start drilling down. So since there's just one tuple in my list, there is the tuple. So we'll grab item 1, and in there is a dictionary. So let's grab that, drill down further. And now we see we have a dictionary, and it has a key, the key being HealthNet, and it's and then its value is a tuple. So now there's an important thing to note here, and that's that the key there and the key here are the same, and they always will be, and that's a useful thing for you. Now that I've gotten down to this tuple, the entry that I'm interested in is entry 0. And there it is. There's the value that I want. So how do I get to it? Well, just using our standard dictionary for key value in my dictionary.items, standard stuff for dictionaries. Now how do I get this particular value? So I'll call it records. And what is it? Well, the value. So because I'm grabbing the key and the value, I've taken care of the first part of this. So because I have key and value, that has taken care of this part. So let's grab the rest of it. So that's the value, and we have a 0, another index of 0, and then we have the key and one more 0. Again, if I take a look at this, so this is the grabbing the key and the value, and so that is 2 zeros, the key and the 0. There's a 0, the key, and the 0. All right, so it looks like I might have grabbed that correctly. And then what am I interested in? Well, I want to print the key and my records. Let's see how we do. All right. And what I come out here is I've grabbed each key and the records. Now, once I have those values, then I can start, say, collect them into a list. So let's just start with an empty list, and I can then go, and rather than printing each pair, I can make it. I could just add them on of my records. And now when I look at my L, there's a list of tuples, and then I can sort it. Oops. I need that so I can sort on the values. We've used item getter many times before, so I'm sorting my list. Sort on item number 1, and now I've sorted it. But suppose we want just the top 10. Boom, there we go. So what did I do? I went and I figured out how to get the particular value I was after, and then I created some tuples and made a list out of that. Now, I left out one thing, and that's that all of these, except for one. Let me see if I can still scroll back to where I started. Nope. Well, we can actually look here where when you look at AOL has 3 entries. It's got that one. No, it's got 2 entries. That's right. So it's not as simple. So every time when you get one of these, when you've drilled down to this point of dictionary, list, tuple, and now this this tuple has, in this case, 2 dictionaries in it. So I then have to do something a little bit more than that. Okay, because what was I doing here is I was just grabbing one value, and in fact we may have, as we see there, multiple values. What I suggest you do for this for this particular function, for this particular the top records lost by the entity, is just start out by assuming that they have one value as opposed to like the AOL having 3 of them, and you'll find that you will almost pass the test because all your values will be correct except for the AOL. And that, so write the function, run it through the test. It will fail, but you should fail just because you don't match the AOL. If you do that, then you know you're on the right track, and then you can go back and say, okay, so now how do I handle it when I have multiple values there? And that's the that's sort of the next thing that you have to do is how do you once you've gotten to that point, you now have to have a little total, add up the values for AOL. Or, it's not just AOL, it may be any of them. But just happens in this case that AOL is the one that has more. And of course, don't hard code that by saying, oh, if it's AOL, I have to do something different. So that's that one. How about the next function where you have to do it by year? So what we're doing is we're grabbing a year and all the records for that year. It's like, okay, so how many records got stolen in that particular year? Well, we're going to do something very similar, But when I look at this, when I look at one of these entries, hold on. When I look at these entries, on the second time around, I'm going to be interested in the records and the year. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to collect them by year. And so what would be handy to do this internally in this second function is to build a dictionary of keys and years. So what I did is for that second function where we find the information by years, I just went through and I made sure I could print out these two values out of every record. And if I can print those values out of every record, then I can go ahead and think about building a data structure. And what I did internally is I used a dictionary. And using a dictionary allowed me an easy way to collect up all the 2009 data and all the 2007 data and the 2010 data. So I used the dictionary index by year, and that allowed me an easy way inside of this by year function. So again, first thing I did is I made sure I could print out each year and the records for that. And once I could do that, then it's like, okay, I've got the values. Now how do I go and collect them together? And I just keep doing the same thing. By sector. What are we doing with by sector? Well, the sector is that right there, and then we have the technique that was used. And so it's now just going in. All right, we've been into this dictionary before. We were grabbing these values. Now I'm grabbing these values, and again, I went and I printed those values, and then if I could print those values, then I could deal with them. And then after that, you then have to, we have some plotting there, but then you have to display them. Okay, hopefully that is enough to help get you started. Good luck.